The story begins with the strongest adventurers party called the Silver Wing Battalion trying to take down a massive ice dragon. The battle begins as the dragon swings its tail across the field, but the adventurers dodge it and fight back by using their strongest attack spells. But they do no damage to the massive beast. In response, the dragon fires back with an ice breath attack and forces them to cast defense magic, but its attack is too strong for the party's mage, and it breaks through her barrier easily. But just before the dragon's attack can hit her, the party's cook, Dennis, rushes in and blocks it with his arm. But despite that, the dragon's attack injures the mage's arm. Seeing this, Dennis uses his magic to craft a healing potion and helps the injured mage and boosts her morale. Watching all this, the vice captain of the party, Katie, nods in approval with a smile. But the party's captain Vigo seems to be jealous of their cook for some reason. In frustration, Vigo summons a magical dagger and slashes through the dragon's eye, which makes the dragon go berserk, and it releases a bunch of dark lightning bolts to attack the adventurers. Katie and the captain try one more time to attack the monster together, but their efforts fail miserably, and the whole party is forced to retreat. Later, the captain calls for an urgent meeting to go over some important matters. Though the vice captain's seat seems to be empty, Dennis breaks the silence by asking why they were called in. And that's when the captain speaks up, blaming him for their recent failure. He says they could have won if Dennis hadn't stepped in and scared the dragon off with his dread voice skill. Dennis protests against him, making it clear that Vigo was the one who ordered him to do it. But Vigo outright refuses it and claims that he would never make a rookie decision like that. Dennis recalls that their goal was to collect the rare drops from the dragon. But once it went into rage mode, that was no longer possible, with the team stuck in a dangerous spot. It was Vigo who told him to use the intimidation skill called the Dread Voice. They might have failed the quest, but thanks to that move, everyone made it out alive. At the time, Dennis respected Vigo for making such a bold call, but now it feels like the captain is just using that moment to put all the blame on him. Vigo even goes as far as accusing Dennis of being a spy from a rival party and finally kicks the poor cook out of the group. Dennis looks around, hoping someone will speak up for him, but the entire squad stays quiet, too afraid to say anything in front of the big boss. Being left with no choice, Dennis also quietly goes along with it. Vigo then calls the big guy a lowly chef, which pushes him over the edge. Dennis finally decides to stand up for himself, powering up his butcher knives with magic to get ready for a fight. The captain keeps throwing insults at him and says that even though both of them are level 99, Dennis is still just a cook who has no place in their party. As the tension rises, both of them unleash a dominating aura, and just when it looks like a battle is about to break out inside the Silver Dragon HQ, Dennis calls it quits. He slams the table and says that this party is no longer his headache, then walks out to begin a dream journey as a chef. As he walks through the busy streets, Dennis looks back, knowing it's time to say goodbye to the royal capital. Just then, a little girl bumps into him and accidentally lets go of her balloon. Dennis quickly drops his bag and jumps up to catch it, hands it back to her, and advises her that she shouldn't let go of things that are important to her. Meanwhile, Vigo watches everything from a distance and flashes an evil smile as he quietly decides to put his real plan into motion. Just as Dennis steps out of the city, Katie comes running after him. While Dennis keeps walking, she tries to stop him and asks who will take care of alchemy and make the medicine and food for them now that he's leaving. Dennis tells her that someone else with the same skills will take his place soon, so she should find her meals somewhere else. Katie follows after him and tries to convince him, saying that their party became the strongest in the world because of him, and most members still do not even know he has been supporting from the rear this whole time. She makes one last desperate attempt to stop him, and when that does not work, she asks him to cook at least one final dinner, and maybe a few more meals. Dennis looks at her and asks if that is really all she can think about. Katie realizes that nothing she says will change his mind, so she asks him what he plans to do now. And Dennis shares his dream to open a restaurant and thanks her for letting him join Silver Wing. He remembers how Vigo was jealous of how close Dennis was with Katie, and it always seemed like he was interested in her. Dennis says sorry for not being able to stay and tells her goodbye as he leaves his adventuring life behind. As the story continues, Dennis finally arrives in a small town where he plans to open his restaurant. He begins looking for supplies and walks into a shop, where the owner Polvo tries to trick him into buying an overpriced fridge called an icebox. Just before Dennis makes the purchase, he remembers something from his favorite book, How to Open a Restaurant for Retired Adventurers. He quickly opens it to confirm that it is better to keep the starting costs low. Then he remembers that he can use ice magic and tells the shopkeeper he won't be needing the icebox after all. After leaving the shop, Dennis proudly holds up his book because he plans to follow it word for word. He buys an abandoned property at a very low price, treats the local suppliers with proper respect, and then purchases pots for his kitchen, just when he thinks he has everything ready to begin. He notices a page in the book that suggests hiring a server instead of working alone. At that moment, he sees a crowd gathered around a slave merchant. The man is selling a slave, a girl who was once the daughter of a noble family, but her parents were defeated and exiled. The slave trader speaks highly of her in order to sell her for a high price, and the people in the crowd make all kinds of disturbing comments about her, which makes Dennis feel bad. But he tells himself that he can't help everyone. However, when the girl lifts her face and looks at him, Dennis suddenly sees a reflection of his past self in her eyes. People start placing their bids from around 300,000, going up to 800,000. Dennis suddenly goes overboard and makes the highest offer of 1 million, which leaves the entire crowd speechless. The slave trader becomes excited and is about to sell the girl to Dennis, but out of nowhere, Polvo steps in and offers 1.5 million. Unable to tolerate the creepy man, Dennis immediately raises his bid to 2 million. The bidding continues and crosses 4 million, and in the end, Dennis spends all his money to buy the girl, which leaves him with almost nothing for himself. After that, he takes her to get a change of clothes, and she looks very cute in her new outfit. That evening, the girl quietly follows Dennis. Even though he tells her to stay close, she still ends up getting lost. She gets pushed around, bumps into people again and again, and gets scolded by them. No matter where she looks, all she sees are monsters standing in a cold and unfamiliar world. She stands still, clenching tightly onto her dress, and just then Dennis finds her and tells her she made him worry by getting lost, bringing her back to his place. He even apologizes for walking too fast for her. The girl finally says a few words and asks him why he bought her. Dennis replies that it was because she reminded him of something from his past. He then makes sure she feels comfortable and asks for her name. At first, she tells him to just call her slave, but when he gently insists, she finally tells him her name is Aitlier. Dennis politely introduces himself as well, and when she asks what she's supposed to do, he tells her she can use the second floor however she wants, and that she's free to leave if she ever wishes to. While the girl looks at him in disbelief, her stomach growls loudly, so Dennis smiles and tells her to wait while he cooks something up. The chef works with great skill, neatly adding one ingredient after another, putting together a sparkling dish within seconds. The girl watches everything he does, and the moment she takes a spoonful of the food, her eyes light up with joy, and she quickly finishes the plate while shedding tears. Dennis understands that the girl must have gone through a lot, so he chooses not to ask anything about her past until she feels ready to open up to him. He smiles as he watches her enjoy the meal. But as he asks her how it tastes, Aitlier ends up stuffing herself too much and begins choking on the food, making some strange noises that leave Dennis concerned about what will happen if someone hears those. The next morning, Aitlier has already cleaned the entire place, making it shine. Dennis gives her a set of cooking clothes and starts having her taste the dishes he makes. He involves her in every little task, and instead of trailing behind him at a distance, the girl now begins walking side by side with him. Once the preparations are done, Dennis raises his voice with energy and even makes her bump fists with him. He decides to name the place Adventurer's Restaurant and begins explaining Aitlier's new duties. He tells her that she is now their poster girl, and Aitlier even starts pretending that she would act like a waitress. Watching her get so motivated makes Dennis feel proud and genuinely happy, and he takes one last look around to check that everything is in order. After confirming that they are finally ready to open, he shouts loudly, asking for his first customer to show up soon. He hopes to get them hooked on his food so they keep coming back to eat 3 times a day, and most importantly, he hopes they actually pay him since he is now completely broke. Just then, the restaurant door slides open and an adventurer walks in, dressed in some retro-style armor. Seeing the customer suited from head to toe in heavy armor without a single gap, Dennis goes speechless. But then he remembers the guidebook's lesson, which says that sometimes troubled customers who don't want to be bothered come by, so one should respect their boundaries and make their stay comfortable. With that in mind, Dennis smiles at him and tells Aitlier to bring a cup of water. While the knight sits down and reads the menu quietly, Dennis stares at him intensely, thinking the knight will give him a challenging dish to make, but he shyly points to the small rice bowl and then a topping. Dennis asks him if he wants anything else, but the knight strongly refuses, so after he asks him if he is a light eater, and he says no, Dennis quickly realizes he's just broke. After that, Dennis sighs and lets the guy know he's going to cook up a katsudon, but the knight's voice shakes as she explains she doesn't have enough money. Being irritated, Dennis says a strong guy needs to eat well, but after processing for a second, he realizes that he heard a girl's voice inside the bulky helmet. A few minutes later, the lady knight named Henrietta opens up to him that her party also booted her and calls them horrible because they said the reason was that female knights aren't strong and only become a burden, so they don't need one in their party. She says gender has nothing to do with skill, and Dennis agrees, but she also admits she is only level 23 at the moment, and he thinks she is doing well for her level. Then, she gets all excited about the strongest party, Silver Wing, because their vice captain is also a female swordswoman like her. Henrietta fangirls over the legendary Crimson Swift Sword, who some consider to be the strongest female swordswoman ever born. But Dennis mumbles that she can be a real pain, and when she asks what that means, he pretends he said nothing. Next, Henrietta confesses she's been looking for a party without talking, so they don't figure out she is a girl. But it's pretty hard to join a party without actually talking to them, and now she's out of both money and work. After finishing her therapy session, Dennis serves her the mouth-watering katsudon and tells her to enjoy it while it's hot, and pay him back some other time. Wasting no time, Henrietta's eyes sparkle the moment she bites into the crispy cutlet, and it tastes so good she stuffs her cheeks and calls it the best food in the world. When she thanks him after eating, he tells her to become a regular if she wants to thank him. And Henrietta is up for it if it wasn't for the fact that she can't earn money without a party. Hearing that, he gets the idea to ask his customers if they need a female knight, and asks her to come eat again soon so he can tell her if he has found a group. Before long, a party of guys comes to the restaurant and also gets surprised by how delicious all the food is, and the little waitress is pretty cute too. They give Dennis a compliment, which makes him happy, and he asks Aitlier if she's happy that they called her cute as well. But she silently walks away, showing zero emotion, though she still looks much happier than before as she shyly serves a nice old lady. Just then, Dennis overhears the guys saying it's time for their next adventure, so he asks them if they're a party and tells them he knows a swordswoman looking to join. Hearing that it's a girl and she's quite skilled, their leader is more than happy to recruit her, and he tells Dennis she can join as soon as the next day. Dennis is a little surprised by how fast they agreed, and the guy explains that his party desperately needs a strong attacker. Later that evening, Henrietta is in disbelief at how quickly Dennis found her a party and thanks him, saying she will show her gratitude by spending her first paycheck at his restaurant. However, Dennis thinks it over a bit and says even though he found them for her, she should be more careful about which party she joins. But before he explains what he means, she tells him it's no big deal, and she won't be able to do anything if she sweats over every tiny detail. Seeing that she has made her decision, he serves her another delicious dish that melts all of Henrietta's worries away, and she promises to pay back his kindness while awkwardly talking and munching with her mouth open. When she wonders out loud what she should order tomorrow, he realizes she might really eat every meal at his place, and with that, they say their goodbyes. That night, while Dennis and Aitlier clean up in the back, the last two customers talk about how good his cooking is, and right after that, the girls discuss the rumor going around about a party of guys that recruits solo female adventurers, and then assaults them after taking them deep in the dungeon. That instantly catches Dennis's attention, and he hears the girl mention that the guys haven't been caught because they leave the girl there to hide evidence, and move to the next town after they do it 2 or 3 times. After listening to the whole story, the party of 4 guys comes to his mind, but he hopes they're not the bad guys. The following day, after Henrietta introduces herself, their leader, Still, and the 3 other guys introduce themselves back. Still tells her to stay relaxed around him like everyone else, even though he is technically the leader. With that, they head to the forest. Henrietta asks Still what the quest is, and he tells her it is just a simple gathering request. Hearing that they only need to go inside and collect some items, Henrietta grows curious about what those items are, but the guys say they will explain inside. But she decides to go along with them to avoid making things awkward. Inside, she quickly defeats all the monsters on the first level, and the guys give her lots of compliments, which make her blush. But when Still says it's time to go deeper, she feels very happy that her party is relying on her, unlike before when she was judged just for being a girl. She thinks things will work out great with her new party, not knowing that the fake smiles plastered on their face disappear when she's not looking. As the party goes deeper, they trigger a trap that summons a giant golem, but Henrietta jumps right in and slices its arm in an instant. And she continues her job as the main damage dealer for hours until she gets so tired that her legs give out. However, still acts surprised she's already tired, and she reminds him he said their destination wasn't that deep. But the leader says they are almost there, so she pushes herself all the way till they reach a crystal mine. There, the guys explain that they came here to gather the blue crystals called memory crystals and immediately start collecting them. Hearing that, Henrietta breathes a sigh of relief and sits down looking exhausted. So still asks the mage Marmok to cast some recovery magic on her. But instead, he shocks her with a stun spell that makes her body very weak, and when she tries to grab her sword, still stomps on her hand and kicks it away. Henrietta quickly realizes that she has been stunned as Still steps on her and thanks her for being so dumb and easy to flatter. But Marmok defends her and says that it is because she is so dumb that they are going to make some nice memories with her. Looking at her with nasty eyes, Still says swordswomen are the best kind of prey because they have nice bodies, and gives her the good news that he will let her go after his gang has had their fun for an hour. Marmok wishes her luck on getting rescued, because she won't be able to return under the effect of his stun. At that moment, Henrietta regrets not listening to Dennis's advice and being more careful when she noticed the group acting shady. Then, they start taking off her heavy armor piece by piece, and Still makes it crystal clear that no one will come for her, no matter how much she screams, and right as she loses all hope. The guys notice a strange noise which could be another party. As soon as Still orders Handok to check it out, a giant rock comes flying and smashes right into him. The guys stare in confusion at the monster with 2 butcher knives and a bag on his face. As their hearts pound, they wonder if it is a monster or a very beefy creep with big kitchen knives. But Still quickly orders Marmok to cast Search and find a weakness in his panic. His spell fails and he realizes the butcher's level is too high for him to find a weakness. So while Still finds it unbelievable that it is possible, the butcher flashes behind him and one hit from his knife sends the man flying into the wall and leaves the others shaking. They try to escape, but the butcher gives them the beating they deserve, while Henrietta wonders who the strangely skilled chef saving her is and blacks out. Later that evening, she tells Dennis everything that happened and that she woke up in the guild's waiting room, and says she couldn't say thanks to her buff hero with cleavers. Dennis understands how tough it was, and she also reveals that weirdly enough, her attackers were found neatly tied up outside the dungeon's entrance, and after the guild dug into it, it was found that all of them had a bounty on their heads. She admits it all felt like a dream, and she's learned her lesson to pick her teammates carefully in the future, like he told her. But Dennis feels guilty as well for not looking into them beforehand, as Henrietta claims all he did was help find her a party. Her tummy growls very loudly, so even though she panics that she is still broke, Dennis asks her to order whatever she wants without holding back. Hearing that, she shyly orders the Supreme Hajin steak set, which freaks out Dennis because it is the most expensive item on the menu. So she instantly backs down and settles for the cheapest item. However, Dennis says she can't take her order back and tells Aetlier to take the rest of the day off and join her for dinner. Just then, the regulars drop in as well and order Palama gratin. After a few moments of cooking with precision, Dennis serves the Supreme Hajin steak set that makes Henrietta and Aetlier smile in pure happiness. Right then, the girls ask him why he was closed the last 2 days because it's bad for new businesses like his restaurant, and he explains he had some important business. Curious, Henrietta notices that he looks a lot like her hero from behind, but before she can ask him, another customer comes in. The next morning, Henrietta keeps talking non-stop, and when she finally asks Dennis something, he replies that he did not think she was even speaking to him. After that, he smoothly changes the subject and asks what she wants to eat. She goes with sorcery ramen, and the chef quickly gets to work. While preparing the meal, he admits he was actually listening the whole time and then brings the conversation back to her question, asking why she wants to hide her gender. When Henrietta has no answer, Dennis tells her to go with whatever feels right to her and then presents the steaming bowl of sorcery ramen she ordered. Henrietta quietly takes his advice to heart and gets up from her seat. She asks to borrow the back room for a moment and quickly removes all her armor inside. When she returns, she is wearing a completely different outfit. While walking back, she thinks about how people often forget who they are. But instead of falling into that, she now understands that being herself feels much better. Even Aetlier nods in approval at her new getup. which makes Henrietta blush with excitement. Henrietta then starts eating and enjoys every single bite of the food. Dennis watches her with a smile, glad to see her that excited. But he suddenly brings up a question and asks if she is looking to join a party. He reminds her that once she finishes her meal, she needs to find a job and start paying off her tab. The moment Henrietta hears that the chef is actually keeping a tab, she flips out and starts making a huge fuss. While the chaos continues, the door slides open and a shiny adventurer steps inside, calmly takes a seat, and hides behind the menu while getting ready to order. Dennis glances at the new customer and finds himself confused, unsure if the person is a handsome guy or a cute girl. When the customer asks what tastes good around here, Dennis confidently replies that everything is up to the mark. But the vague answer only makes it harder for the guests to choose. After a brief complaint, the chef recommends the vritra katsudon, but the customer immediately turns it down, saying he is not in the mood for rice. Henrietta jumps in with a few suggestions, starting with her favorite pasta, then moving on to kelpai udon, but nothing seems to catch the guests' interest. Watching this, Dennis grows increasingly annoyed as his patience begins to run out. Henrietta quickly steps in again, this time trying to calm the chef down by explaining that kids can be pretty indecisive sometimes. Right then, Aitlier walks over to the customer and suggests going for fried rice if he really cannot make up his mind. The blue-haired guest takes the suggestion and places an order for fried rice, which makes Dennis smile as he gets back to the kitchen. He prepares the dish with his usual finesse, cooking it perfectly and topping it off with a few shrimps. The moment the customer tastes the first spoonful, he stops in awe, completely melting under the rich, delicious flavor. As the boy continues to eat, Dennis brings up what he noticed earlier and points out how the customer had entered while sighing and looking like he needed someone to talk to. The boy replies that it is nothing in particular, and Dennis tells him that it is fine if he doesn't feel like sharing. Still, the boy decides to open up and says that the real problem is with how low the level of people around him is. His words leave everyone, including Dennis, stunned as the boy gives off the vibe of someone who enjoys praising himself. The new kid then asks Dennis if he wants to hear what exactly he meant, and even though Dennis refuses, the boy starts talking anyway. He explains that the people around him have a weak mindset and only focus on being praised rather than pushing themselves to grow into a truly top-tier party. Dennis looks at Henrietta and tells her to have some shame, while Henrietta frowns and complains that the chef gets way too rude sometimes. Before they can continue, the new boy slams his hands on the table and stands up, clearly wanting everyone to hear him as he yells that he cannot stand those unmotivated adventurers and finds that kind of attitude unforgivable. He then starts bluffing again and says that when he spoke like this to his party, they kicked him out, which makes Dennis feel awkward as he wonders why his restaurant keeps attracting outcasts from everywhere. Henrietta replies that she has no idea either, but the boy just keeps talking, confidently declaring that he will soon become strong enough to join Silver Wind and end up as their most powerful wizard. Dennis advises him to be careful, or he might end up alone, and once the boy finishes eating, he pays up and leaves, introducing himself as Vivia Strange and saying he will order shrimp fried rice next time. The boy shows up again for another meal and places his order right away. As usual, he keeps talking non-stop and announces that he has decided to join the strongest party around here, called the Night Mist Troop. He boasts about having many advanced skills and claims that it will not take long before he makes it into Silver Wing. Dennis soon brings over the food, and the boy continues fantasizing about his future with Silver Wing, while Dennis quietly hopes that the kid finds a reliable party that actually helps him grow into a dependable adventurer. Dennis then asks about his first quest, and the boy explains that he is gathering taste synthesis materials from somewhere around the 5th floor. Hearing that makes Dennis a little uneasy, so he uses his search skill and finds out that the boy is only level 17. While that is quite high for his age, Dennis knows the 5th floor is meant for people at least in their mid-30s. He asks the boy if he does not think that is a bit too deep for him, but the boy confidently replies that some of the most elite members of the group will be supporting him. Dennis remembers how the boy kept bluffing earlier about knowing all kinds of advanced skills, but now he is almost sure the kid must have only read about them in books and convinced himself he could use them. A person's level reflects the number and quality of skills they possess, and if he truly had so many, his level would be much higher. Vivia then says that it only shows how much the party expects from him, though Dennis still appears concerned. The boy quickly adds that a chef like him wouldn't understand since he probably never even stepped into a dungeon, so Mr. Chef just plays along. even though the last time he went in, it was down to the 37th floor. Before leaving, the boy says he will return next time for crab fried rice. A while later, Aitlier and Dennis head out for some shopping, with the adorable little girl carefully counting eggs and meat to make sure they do not forget anything. While she stays focused on the groceries, Dennis appears lost in thought and worries about Vivia, who must have reached the 5th floor by now. He wonders if it was a mistake to let the boy go, and whether he should have stopped him no matter what, but eventually shakes off the thought. Aitlier tugs at his clothes and says she hopes Vivia is safe. Just then, two adventurers walk past them, chatting about Vivia's fate and how their captain, Hopper, had deliberately sent the boy to the 5th floor just to see if he would survive. Hearing this, Dennis immediately rushes toward them, grabs both men, and drags them into a nearby back alley before slamming them onto the ground. The adventurers pull out their weapons and introduce themselves as members of the Night Mist Troop, but despite that, they are the ones who end up getting beaten down, while Dennis walks away with the information he came for. When Dennis returns to Aitlier, he apologizes and tells her that they will have to close the restaurant for the day. He finds her just as worried, and she quietly asks him to be safe. Dennis smiles at her and tells her not to worry about him at all. Meanwhile, down on the 5th floor, Vivia runs wildly through the dungeon, shouting at a group of goblins to stay away from him. The adventurers who had come with him had already left him behind, claiming it was some kind of test and that their captain, Hopper, had placed high hopes on him. Vivia panics, thinking he must at least reach the 3rd level to be safe, but in the middle of running, he trips, and suddenly vines start growing around his feet. He struggles to break free, but the vines seem to be enchanted, and magic pulses through them. He tries to cast a spell to break the magic, but his mind goes completely blank, and he cannot remember the incantation. He starts freaking out and worries that the goblins will shred him apart once they catch up. Just before they reach him, a girl shows up and saves him, cutting the vines and casting the right spell. As she pulls him to safety, Vivia looks up at her and thanks her, impressed that she knows how to use spell-breaking magic. The girl calmly tells him this isn't the time to relax and they need to find a way out. When Vivia asks if she got lost too, she explains that her party left her behind after she fell into the same trap, and no one ever came to help. Then she tells him that they should wait together in case someone comes to rescue him. But Vivia quietly admits that no one is coming for him either. As they sit and talk, the two slowly realize how alike they really are. Just then, the goblins get near, and Vivia immediately tries to act like a hero, sharing his plan to serve as a decoy so Cynthia can have time to escape. Although she protests and urges him to wait for help, he insists that he owes her his life and runs off before she can stop him. As he faces the goblins, he shouts that he wants her to be the one who lives on, and then throws himself in front of the monsters. He forces himself to stay calm, hoping Cynthia is getting away safely, and casts a defensive spell called Palm to hold the goblins back. The spell works for a moment, but the creatures eventually break through and charge toward him. Right at that moment, Dennis appears wearing a budget mask and uses one of his skills to trap the goblins inside a cooking pot. Vivia screams in shock, pointing at him and calling him a monster while repeatedly casting his palm spell out of pure panic. Dennis scolds him, and it finally hits Vivia that the masked man is Dennis. Dennis rips off the mask and asks what the point of wearing it even was before smacking Vivia on the head for pulling off a suicide stunt right in front of the goblins. As Dennis begins dragging him along, Vivia quietly mentions that there is someone else with him. He worries that Cynthia might have already run off, but Dennis says he did not see anyone on his way here. The boy points toward a nearby hollow, saying she might still be there, but when they look inside, all they find are skeletal remains of someone who had likely died a long time ago. Later at the guild, they learn that the girl was Cynthia Dredd, an adventurer who got separated from her party 13 years ago on the 5th floor, and no one had heard from her since. The two of them gather her remains and bury her in a grave. Dennis says he has heard myths about fallen adventurers whose spirits sometimes appear to protect the living, and Vivia breaks down crying. He thanks her for saving him and promises that he will keep visiting her grave and one day become the #1 wizard who protects girls like her. On their way back to the restaurant, Dennis lightly smacks the boy on the back, telling him to cheer up so Cynthia can rest in peace. But Vivia just sighs and says he should at least be allowed to feel a little sad for a while. The following day at the Night Mist Troops HQ, a man calls over a girl named Bockel and scolds her for taking too long with her reports. She keeps apologizing while he bullies her without pause, and she tries to explain that the numbers do not match. but he hits her with the paper stack and tells her to keep working until they do. After that, she stays up all night and finally figures out the mistake. It turns out the mismatched numbers were caused by her senior's sloppy work. While reminding herself she has to get up early tomorrow, her stomach growls loudly. She becomes sad on realizing she had no lunch or dinner, and now all the restaurants are closed. Just then, she remembers a new place that opened recently, but by the time she reaches it, she sees Aitlier outside getting ready to close and loses all hope. However, Aitlier notices her and brings her inside to request Dennis to serve one last customer before shutting down. Hearing her speak up for someone, Vivia is surprised. Henrietta says it could not hurt, so Dennis welcomes the girl and asks her to choose a dish. After taking a seat, Bockel orders the daily special. While Dennis prepares it, she quietly watches Henrietta and Vivia chatting at the counter. Seeing them have fun together, she starts to envy the nice mood. Because her life is only work all day, she has no friends, and she never gets real time off. So she thinks about starting her social life in the restaurant. A few minutes later, Dennis serves her food and Bockel blankly stares at the plate because it looks incredible. He tells her to eat before it gets cold, so she dips it in sauce and takes her first bite. Her eyes sparkle, and she says she has never tasted anything like it in her life. Hearing that, Henrietta smiles and says everything Dennis makes is delicious. She starts listing the best dishes she has tried, and Vivia is surprised by how many she knows. So Henrietta proudly says she is the restaurant's first customer. Dennis makes the correction that she is also the first moocher who got too comfortable just because he lets her pay later. He tells her to get a job already, and she fires back that Vivia does not have one either. Watching them argue makes Bockel laugh out of nowhere, and Dennis says sorry for the disturbance. But just then, everyone freezes as Bockel suddenly starts crying. In her mind, she thinks it is amazing that a place like this with kind people and amazing food exists. Yet all she gets is insults and long nights, and every morning, she wakes up wishing she could just put an end to it all. Just then, she remembers her childhood when she amazed her family with her magic skills, so they saved up for years for her to leave the village and become a wizard they could be proud of. Back then, the headmaster at her school was so impressed, she even offered Bockel a job there. But Bockel wanted to earn real money from adventuring to send back home, so she joined the strongest guild in town. Back in the present, Henrietta notices Bockel leaving and wonders if she is alright. Vivia says she works for the Night Mist Troop, the same guild that sent him on the impossible mission. He says he only saw her once, but her treatment there was very concerning. Hearing that, Henrietta asks Dennis if he can do something about it, and Vivia agrees. But Dennis says he is just a cook. His job is to feed people, and this is a problem the girl has to face herself. The next morning, Bockel snoozes her alarm at 3 and curls up in bed. She did not sleep all night, and now she can barely move. As she worries about being late, she dozes off again. 2 hours pass, so she gets ready quickly. She rushes downstairs and apologizes to her team as a man scolds her for being shameless enough to make her seniors wait. With that, they leave for the dungeon. There, the man gets knocked down by a wolf monster, but just before it slashes his face, Bockel casts wind magic and blasts it away. However, instead of thanking her, he shoves her and stares menacingly. Later that evening, his words echo in her mind because he twisted the story, saying she tried to embarrass him and steal credit for the kill, and when she tried to explain, they forced her to apologize and called her unworthy of the party. Meanwhile, Henrietta and Vivia are walking nearby, chatting about food and jobs. Vivia suddenly notices Bockel walking alone with a strange look on her face, so the two follow her quietly to a tower where Vivia realizes she is serious about jumping. At that moment, Bockel thinks life is no longer worth living, and one step will bring it to an end. Right after she jumps off, Henrietta sprints forward and manages to grab her mid-fall. Vivia casts palm below to soften the landing. At the same time, Dennis is deep in thought when Aitlier walks past with no clothes on. She casually asks if they are out of towels. He tells her it is not okay to walk around like that just because they are out. He rushes inside to find one. Just then, Henrietta walks in with Bockel on her back. Vivia is disturbed. He asks why Aitlier has no clothes on and wonders if it is some shameless business tactic. He yells at her to get dressed, but she insists she will not wear anything until she dries off properly. Hearing Henrietta call him again, Dennis turns to scold her, but he stops when he sees Bockel passed out on her shoulder. Later, Dennis says it was bound to happen because she is the kind of honest person who keeps piling up work until her heart gives out. And Vivia quickly jokes that Henrietta will not be having that problem anytime soon. Dennis finds it a little disturbing how well they are getting along. As Aetlier keeps watch over the girl, Vivia asks how they can solve her problem. So Dennis decides to talk with the Night Mist troop about it. A few hours later, the captain of Night Mist comes over and apologizes to Dennis for the trouble Bokal caused. But Dennis says he should also say sorry for beating up 2 of his guys. The man introduces himself as Hopper, captain of the Night Mist party, and Dennis just tells him he runs a restaurant. From there, Hopper quickly shifts to business and Dennis learns the man is far stronger than normal adventurers at level 51, as expected from the top party in town. When Hopper brings up Bokal, Dennis explains she is resting in bed and clearly in no shape to be working. He asks nicely if they will let her go and allow her to rest, but Hopper refuses and says they have full custody of her. His lackey throws a contract on the table, and after Dennis reads it, he gets angry and calls it awful because they dumped too much work on one person. Hopper replies that this is just how they operate, but Dennis argues that adventurers should be free to leave a party. Hopper tells him to mind his own business, which fires Dennis up so much that he starts yelling at them for sucking Bokal dry like slave masters. The accusation angers Hopper so much that he crushes a mug with his bare hands, making Vivia and Henrietta terrified. After that, the captain says their party is the strongest in town, so they are the law here. He demands that Dennis hand over Bokal right now, and says this is the last time he will ask nicely. Meanwhile, upstairs, Bokal is curled up in bed, wishing she had never been saved. Suddenly, Aetlier speaks up and tells her she is free to die if that is her choice, and says she once thought of choosing death too, when everything precious to her was taken, and she was sold as a slave. She was consumed by darkness and gave up hope. But after that, something good happened to her and changed her life. In the end, Aetlier tells Bokal to eat some delicious food first, and if she still feels the same after that, then maybe death is the only path left for her. But she says she would be happier if Bokal chooses to keep living. Back downstairs, Dennis asks if Hopper thinks he is some kind of king or big deal. The man just smiles and says the strongest party in a dungeon town basically owns it, because no one else can take them down. He even brings up Silver Wing as an example. But Dennis argues that Silver Wing is nothing like their scummy crew. Hopper insists the only difference is that Silver Wing controls nobles and royals while they control a small town. Then, he calls Dennis's restaurant a shabby place that would burn down easily. And when Dennis asks if that is a threat, Hopper just laughs and says no one would care if a worthless little restaurant burned down. In frustration, Dennis looks ready to punch the man. But just then, a customer walks in. With a bright smile, Katie says his restaurant looks great and has a cozy feel, just the way he likes. Dennis apologizes and tells her he is busy with something serious, but that ticks her off. She says she came all this way just to see him, and asks if he is not even going to make her dinner. At that moment, Hopper's jaw drops when he spots the crimson hair and silver wing symbol on her coat. He blurts out her nickname, but Katie is offended at the old man casually throwing around her title like that. Then she turns back to Dennis and keeps asking for dinner, but he tells her to wait at the counter until his talk is finished, making her pout. Dennis turns back to Hopper to say again that he does not want to fight, and asks if there is any way to let Bokal leave the troop peacefully. Before Hopper can answer, Katie yells that she wants to take the cute blue-haired girl, but Dennis corrects her that he is a boy. In his confusion, Vivia asks if she is Silver Wing's vice captain and how she knows Dennis. Katie is surprised that he never told them, and before Dennis can stop her, she casually announces that he used to be part of Silver Wing and was her best partner. Hearing that, everyone in the room is stunned, and Hopper starts shaking as he realizes he nearly made enemies with the wrong guy. When his lackey asks what to do, Hopper quickly says to burn the contract, says Bokal is free to leave the party, and then rushes out of the place, wishing her a quick recovery. After they leave, Katie says she didn't like their attitude one bit, especially since they messed with her Dennis, but Dennis reminds her he does not belong to her. Katie suggests that she could get the trash kicked out of the kingdom, and while Dennis is thankful, he also warns her not to get carried away just because she has power. That annoys her a little, but his kind heart is also what she likes most about him. While Henrietta and Vivia quietly stare, Dennis asks Katie what she wants to eat. That's when Aetlier shows up with Bokal and requests a daily special. Katie also orders the same and starts digging in. As Bokal sits and silently watches her, Dennis tells her to eat before it gets cold. And after the first bite, she scarfs it down fast so adorably that it makes everyone at the table smile. The next day at the Silver Wing HQ, Katie walks in and hears the others talking about how the captain has been in a bad mood lately since the party has been struggling with new quests. Just then, she bumps into Vigo, who clearly looks annoyed. Suddenly, he tells the two nearby members to leave and quickly asks Katie what business she had meeting Dennis, which he heard from a little bird. Katie jokes that his little birdie is pretty fast, and then says she only went to eat Dennis's food after a long time. But in reality, after enjoying the daily special, Katie invited Dennis to return to Silver Wing because the team is falling apart without him. He made it clear he has no plans of coming back, even when she told him that things have been rough for Vigo and the others without his support. Dennis explained that he loves his new life, and even though most of his regulars are weirdos, he enjoys the stress-free life. When Katie asked if her begging would change anything, he reminded her that he was a chef from the very start, not an adventurer. Feeling sad about his answer, Katie tries to convince Vigo to invite Dennis, but the captain flat out refuses and tells her to just forget about it. She argues that everything was going so well when he was on the team, so why not ask him back? But Vigo ends the conversation by walking away. Meanwhile, things are getting busier than ever at the restaurant, and Henrietta says it makes sense since Dennis cooks good food and everyone loves good food. At that moment, Vivia looks surprised to see Bokkel there, and Bokkel thanks her for dropping by. She reveals she is living at the restaurant now, so Henrietta tells her to take it easy and not overdo things, but Bokkel says staying still makes her anxious, plus she has a cute senior helping her out. Right then, Dennis arrives with their food, and the two light up like always when they see what he made. Henrietta takes a bite of the crispy shrimp and says that this is exactly why more people are becoming regulars like her. But Dennis reminds her she is more of a freeloader than a regular. Hearing that, both Vivia and Bokkel are shocked she still has not paid him back. But Henrietta insists she has been trying to find a job and things are just rough right now. Dennis gives her a cold stare, and she finally apologizes for making lazy excuses. Just then, more customers walk in and Vivia asks Dennis if he can manage all of them. He explains that Aetlier has been helping a lot, and Vivia also notices she seems to be having fun lately. So maybe something good happened to her? Right after that, a bowl slips from Dennis's hand, and he asks Vivia if he can visit on his next day off because he wants to talk about something. Henrietta quickly offers to help out as well, but Dennis shoots her down right away, which only makes her even more curious about what they are going to talk about. Later that night, Henrietta feels uneasy knowing she has to take a shower in a public bath because she is still broke. When she remembers Dennis calling her a freeloader, she starts to believe he might actually kick her out of the restaurant if she keeps this up. So she decides to do something before it is too late. Meanwhile, on Vivia's next day off, Dennis finally sits him down and confesses that Aetlier has a boyfriend now, and Vivia is shocked that this is what Dennis wanted to talk about. Dennis explains that he has been giving her some allowance lately, but now she keeps wandering off on her own. He says he was worried sick about where she went until he saw her walking around with some guy. Vivia thinks it is good that she is making friends, but Dennis slams the table and says it is way worse if they are more than friends. When Vivia asks why he does not just ask her directly, Dennis gets flustered and says it would sound creepy. In frustration, he says the guy should have at least brought him a box of cookies if he is serious about her, and then he declares he will not let her go out with any weakling below level 80. Suddenly, Aetlier appears behind him and tugs his shirt, asking what he is talking about, which makes Dennis freak out. Vivia quickly covers for him by saying he came to learn how to cook, and Dennis gives him a thumbs up for the quick save. Right then, Aetlier says she wants to learn cooking too, which makes Dennis happy, and he tells her to wash her hands before they start. Later, he shows her how chopping onions the right way changes the taste, and when she says her eyes hurt, he panics and quickly tells her a trick to deal with it. But when Vivia says his eyes hurt too, Dennis just wishes him good luck. After that, he compliments Aetlier when she gets the onion cuts right. But when Vivia does a good job too, Dennis barely reacts at all. While watching Aetlier try her best, Dennis recalls his own childhood, when he once asked his master if he was doing good. She told him he cheated by using a skill, so he asked how she knew, and she replied that she always knows what he is up to. Back in the present, Aetlier snaps Dennis out of his thoughts and tells him she accidentally broke the egg. So he helps her fix it and has fun teaching her how to crack eggs properly, mix them, and coat the meat with crumbs. Next, they fry the meat, and soon the Britora cutlet is ready. Dennis tells Aetlier she did amazing for her first try. On the other hand, when Vivia proudly presents his cutlet, Dennis just says it looks good without even looking. Just then, the sound of the clock tower makes Aitlir jump up, and she rushes out, saying she has to go. Dennis asks where she is going, and she simply replies outside as if he doesn't already know that. Watching her leave, Vivia wonders if she is off to meet her boyfriend, which makes Dennis panic again. At that exact moment, Bokkel steps out of her room, and Dennis quickly tells her to finish the 2 bowls and then go shopping, because he has something urgent to take care of with Vivia, who clearly does not want to go. At the same time, Bokkel looks uneasy since she does not feel confident shopping alone. That is when Henrietta shows up just in time and proudly announces that she took a party placement exam. But Dennis ignores it and asks if she can help Bokkel with shopping. Henrietta happily agrees, and Dennis tells them he is counting on them before dashing out at full speed, making the girls wonder what's wrong. In the city, Vivia tries to convince Dennis to stop because they definitely look like stalkers, but Dennis brushes it off, saying he is her guardian. Vivia says he should just walk up to her then, instead of acting like a creep. Just then, Dennis grabs Vivia by the head and points at the boy who dares to charm his sweet girl. Vivia says they still do not know if he is just a friend. But when the boy leads her into a jewelry shop, Dennis loses it, thinking she is about to walk out with a wedding ring, and it is way too soon for that. At first, Vivia asks if they should go inside. But after seeing Dennis mentally break down, he comes up with a better idea. Meanwhile, Henrietta sits alone nearby looking worried, so Bokkel asks her what is wrong. She admits she needs to make money fast before Dennis starts hating her. And when Bokkel asks about her odd job pay, she says it all goes into repairing her gear and buying healing items because she always gets hurt. That her money just vanishes no matter how hard she works. And it makes sense since she's the tank. Henrietta says she is trying to think of some other way to repay him, and Bokkel promises she will support her no matter what, which cheers her up. Just then, they overhear 2 guys talking about a rumor that the Night Mist captain got humbled by a restaurant owner who used to be with Silver Wing. They wonder if Night Mist will try to get back at him. Meanwhile, Dennis is still confused about why Vivia's genius plan involves a megaphone. Vivia explains the device is enchanted with magic to carry voices a long distance. Dennis still does not get how that helps, so Vivia says that's where a genius mage like him comes in. After he casts the spell, Aitlir's voice comes through. Dennis is genuinely impressed, but Vivia admits he is not exactly proud of doing this. Then, they hear Aitlir say she likes it, that it is cool, and she will cherish it forever. That stuns them both. But when she says she is glad to have met him, Dennis panics so loudly that a nearby old lady gets suspicious. At that moment, a thief uses wind magic to snatch the lady's bag and dash off. Dennis shouts for help, but after learning the thief only stole a bag, he turns to Vivia and asks for a magic boost. Meanwhile, the blonde thief laughs about how easy it was, until he sees a scary man sprinting with a kid on his shoulders quickly closing the gap. The thief is stunned that someone can keep up with him even using wind magic. Then he realizes Dennis is not even using any at all, while Vivia asks if all Silver Wing members are this fast, and Dennis replies that he is the fastest because he never skipped leg day. At a dead end, the thief uses wind magic to jump to the roof, while Dennis climbs it with pure muscles. And when he asks Vivia if he has any useful spells, the boy casts Palm to bounce him high into the air like a trampoline. The blonde thief stares in horror as Dennis jumps mid-air and quickly catches up, but he launches a surprise attack on Dennis right before he gets him and takes off, bragging that he will not get caught easily with that kind of magic. Hearing that, Dennis tells Vivia to get off after they land, and Vivia spots the girls up ahead on their way down. As the thief brushes past them, he grins, thinking he just needs to shake them off and sneak out now. But Henrietta comes from above with a serious face and swiftly subdues the cocky thief. After that, Dennis catches up and pats her on the head for the good work. Later at the restaurant, he tells the girls as well that Aitlir has a boyfriend, but Vivia clarifies they do not know for sure yet. Then, Henrietta jokingly asks him if he is feeling lonely these days, and Bokkel comes out with it that she is worried he will ban her. Dennis says he would never ban someone who appreciates his cooking like her, though he might change his mind later. Right after that, Aitlir quietly walks in and goes behind the counter with an intense look on her face as she surprises Dennis with a box. When he looks inside, he finds a bracelet that Aitlir reveals she was saving up all her allowances for. Hearing that, Bokkel laughs that he had the wrong idea, and Henrietta spills the beans when Aitlir asks what that means, and that nearly earns her a permanent ban. After that, he tries it on, and watching him wear it makes Aitlir smile. Meanwhile, Captain Vigo goes to a mansion to meet with someone after a long time. The next day at the restaurant, Dennis tells Aetlier to go clean outside. But just then, a customer walks in, and he tells them that lunch hours are over. However, the customer starts crying with joy the moment he sees Lady Aetlier is safe and sound. Dennis has no idea what is going on, while Henrietta assumes the old man is a weird lowly lover and gets ready to punish him on the spot. But the old man explains that he is Stevens, the head butler of Lady Aetlier Workstadt. Hearing that, Dennis and Henrietta both become curious, while the other two completely flip out. Seeing how clueless Dennis is, Vivia wonders if they live under a rock, and Bockel explains that House Workstadt is the kingdom's biggest and most prestigious mage family, leaving Dennis totally stunned. Meanwhile, the teary butler declares it is finally time for the young lady to take her revenge. After taking a seat, Stevens mutters that it is truly tragic she has to live in a backwater restaurant, which makes Dennis want to throw him onto the street. But Vivia tells him to at least hear the geezer out. Then, Stevens reveals he is actually the former head butler, and the royal court ordered him to bring the young lady back home. His story confuses Dennis, so Stevens goes on to say that Aetlier's late father's brother kicked her out of the family on the claim that she was an illegitimate child. However, now that they have found her father's will, which clearly states that Aetlier is the true heir and will inherit all his power and fortune, the royal court gave her the chance to hear out her case. And that is why Stevens begs her to return, stop her uncle Joseph's cruelty, and take her rightful place as the heir of House Workstadt. But the entire room goes quiet when Aetlier instantly refuses to go. Dennis asks her what is wrong, and she says she does not want to return to that life as the painful memories from her past repeat in her mind. While she hugs Dennis even tighter, Stevens tries to talk her out of working in a restaurant meant for peasants, which makes Dennis furious for a second. But after thinking about it, he realizes Stevens has a point that he is just a humble chef while she is practically a princess. With that in mind, he gently asks Aetlier again if she really does not want to go, and she shyly nods. Still, Dennis tells her she cannot ignore something that will seriously affect her future, because eventually, she will have to face it. After hearing that, Aetlier bravely agrees to go if Dennis comes with her, which makes him feel proud. A few hours later, Vivia shows up wearing a fancy Sherlock Holmes-style outfit and excitedly asks Dennis, who is all suited and booted, if he can tag along. Dennis agrees, and the girls promise they will handle things at the restaurant. Right then, Aetlier walks out in a blue dress, and everyone fawns over how adorable she looks. Dennis says it is time to leave, but Aetlier quietly says she does not want to go, even though she knows she must, and then starts repeating non-stop that she really does not want to go, which makes Dennis proud because that is the longest sentence she has said all month. While he pats her on the head and assures her he is always by her side, Stevens asks the young lady if she and her servants are ready, which really gets on Dennis's nerves even though he knows he is beneath her in status. With that, they depart, and the girls cheerfully wish them a safe journey. After traveling a long distance by carriage, they finally arrive at the capital, and Vivia looks out the window, staring at the city like a kid from the boonies. Meanwhile, Dennis feels uneasy being back in the capital, but Vivia snaps him out of it just as they pass by Black's restaurant, which is known as the best in the royal capital. And although Dennis wants to stop by and greet his old friend, he feels like he can no longer face him. Later, they arrive at House Workstadt, where the legal officer welcomes them and introduces himself as the head of their case, and Dennis introduces himself as Aetlier's guardian. After that, they head inside, where Sestapich explains he will need to test the young lady's blood. Aetlier nearly collapses on the spot when she sees the syringe in Stevens' hand. As it gets closer, she keeps saying it is too scary, like a broken record, and the second it pricks her arm, she flops like a balloon that lost all its air. While Dennis carries her in his arms, Sestapich says they will head to the courtroom next. But Dennis dumps her into Vivia's arms and tells the lawyer he wants to understand her situation better to see how he can help her. Sestapich agrees and explains that her father, Sir Famas, was an expert in hypnosis magic and that some unique types of magic only pass down through bloodlines. Hearing that, Dennis realizes Aetlier inherited the same power to control minds, and Sestapich continues that her father saved many lives using his gift, but his brother poisoned him out of jealousy to steal his beautiful wife and his position as the head. At the same time, he falsely labeled the young lady as an illegitimate child to ruin her reputation so badly that she could never recover. However, Sir Famas was clever, and he left a will, which is why the royal court has allowed a blood test using a magical item to prove her status as the true heir. Then, the man puts a drop of her blood into the magical globe first, then adds a drop of Sir Thomas's blood, which the royal court kept safe this whole time, and explains that the flower-shaped crystal forming inside is proof that they are related by blood. After that, he repeats the test using her mother, Eliza's blood, and the result is the same, confirming that Aetlier is undoubtedly their daughter. Seeing this solid proof makes both Dennis and Vivia happy, but Aetlier still looks sad. Later in court, the judge begins the proceedings in the presence of both parties, and Aetlier's uncle, Sir Joseph, immediately starts throwing shade at Dennis. Dennis remembers that Sir Joseph is one of Captain Vigo's clients and tells the man he will pay for messing with his little girl. Just then, the judge warns Dennis while calling him Dennis Blacks, and Vivia notes the famous name. After that, the proceedings begin and the judge reads out Sir Thomas's will, which states that Lady Aetlier is the true heir of the family, born from his wife, so she is the one meant to inherit his wealth and power, while his brother Sir Joseph will only receive the family's books and secret knowledge. Then, a fat noble stands up and agrees that she is Sir Thomas's daughter, but says she is not worthy of becoming the heir because her mother was just a low-ranking mistress. Right after that, Sestapich snaps back that this kind of nonsense is exactly why everyone is gathered here to draw the young lady's blood and present clear proof so no one can challenge the will. But Sir Joseph just smirks confidently and calls it a waste of time, which makes Dennis furious. With that said, the big doctor approaches Aetlier, terrifying her so much that she tightly grabs Dennis's sleeve, and he gently comforts her while the doctor draws her blood. After that, the judge tells everyone to pick a stick from the jar to decide who will use the magic item, which helps prevent any tampering. Staring at the jar intensely, Dennis pulls out the first stick, but it is not the red one. Then, everyone takes their turn one by one, and it turns out that Stevens is chosen. Next, the old butler starts sweating nervously and shaking as he walks up the stairs. He puts Aetlier's blood in first, then adds her father's blood, and the crystal confirms a match. Dennis sighs in relief, but when Stevens adds her mother, Eliza's blood, the crystal only forms for a second before it melts into a dark goop. Everyone in the room is stunned while Sir Joseph smugly says he told them it would be a waste of time, and Sestapich insists there must have been a mistake, so he makes a request to repeat the test. But the judge says no. Sir Joseph declares this proves Aetlier's birth was a mistake made by his brother, which makes her feel terrible. Then, the judge rules that the will is only half true, so Sir Joseph will inherit the wealth and power of House Workstadt, while Aetlier may inherit the books and magical knowledge. Hearing that, Sir Joseph smirks and says he does not mind agreeing, because the disgrace to their family is still the daughter of his brother. At that moment, Dennis notices that Stevens has been secretly holding a cloth over a wound, and slams the table before grabbing him by the collar, revealing that the old man used his own blood to fake the test. The butler chokes as he confesses that Lord Joseph promised to make him head butler again if he did the dirty work, so Dennis punishes him with fire magic and drops him. Seeing that, the judge tells him to stop disrespecting the law, but Dennis yells that the real ones showing disrespect are the filthy criminals who rigged the lottery, faked the blood test, and had the nerve to torture an innocent girl after everything she has already been through. As the guards storm in, Dennis gets fired up and declares he will turn the fools who hurt Aetlier into ashes. That scares even the guards, but when they attack on Sir Joseph's orders, Dennis offers to show them what hell looks like. However, Vivia tries to stop him by asking who will take care of Aetlier if he becomes an enemy of the whole kingdom. Hearing that, he instantly calms down and looks over at her frightened face. After the hearing ends, Sestapich tells Dennis that the case was dismissed, and Dennis regrets the mistake of bringing Aetlier along in the first place. Then, he takes them to the library to see the knowledge and books she inherited. Inside, he explains it used to be a library, but now it is more of a storage room, though there might still be something valuable left behind. Dennis steps over a broken plank and warns Aetlier to watch her step right before she steps on a magic circle and falls into the basement. Below the surface, he discovers a hidden room filled with mountains of books, and the moment Vivia and Sestapich start reading, they realize the place holds ancient tomes and grimoires so rare that they are practically national treasures. Picking up 2 more books, he explains that the lost history of humanity is packed inside this hidden room. At that moment, Sestapich wonders aloud if her father planned to give this true treasure to Aetlier from the start, leaving the will and predicting that his greedy brother will try to steal it from her. Dennis laughs at the irony and asks Aetlier what she wants to do with it. And the little champ says she wants to give it all to the restaurant. The next morning, Dennis is tired of waiting for Vivia, who overslept. But on his way out, he passes by a man who forces him to stop because he has the same face as Dennis. But his aura feels completely different. Dennis yells for Vivia to hurry, and the man in front of him says that it's a nice name before letting Vivia go. Just then, a girl named Fiorenza walks up to the man in the shadows, calling him Master Heath, and asks who that boy was, and Heath tells her that he was the companion of a counterpart that he told her about before. A few days later, Bacchal guides the huge line of people outside Dennis's restaurant. And while Henrietta and Vivia enjoy his cooking like always, they note things have gotten quite busy ever since word spread about the books Aetlier inherited. The customers, amazed by the legendary books, get really loud. So Dennis yells at them to get out if they are done eating because he isn't running a library. While he gets back to cooking, a man in a turban asks him for a favor, saying he needs one of the books because it contains the cure to his wife's illness. Hearing that, Dennis simply tells Aetlier that the guy needs help, and the cute maid says she will make an exception just this once. Out of nowhere, the others also ask if they can borrow as well, but Dennis scares them away. Kneeling before the young lady, the man thanks Aetlier for the favor and quickly runs out of the restaurant. Dennis sees more customers coming in and starts cooking at max speed with his magic, making Vivia worried he will overwork himself. But Dennis thinks he needs it to keep up with demand and finishes an entire table worth of food in a couple of seconds, which amazes Aetlier. Later, he flashes back to the time when he was alone in the streets, his toes freezing in the cold rain. At that moment, he saw a lady passing by drop a wallet, but instead of stealing it, he went up to the lady and returned it. The lady was surprised he was returning it even though he needed it more than her, and after hearing his innocent reply, she took him back to her place, where he was shocked at being served delicious food at a table. The moment he took a bite, his sadness vanished along with his dull life, and he became really happy at how amazing it tasted. The lady's smiling face and her warm touch are the last things he remembers before he slowly opens his eyes, lying in bed with a high fever. He sees everyone looking at him with a worried face as they tell him he fainted all of a sudden. He tries to get up like it is nothing because he is worried about the restaurant. But when he sees Aetlier's worried face and Bacchal tells him she already closed for the day, he lies back down and says sorry. Looking at Aetlier's sad expression, he asks what is wrong, and Vivia explains she was worried he caught a dangerous disease and she might never see him wake up. Dennis laughs on hearing that before he quickly falls back into sleep. Vivia tells the girls it is probably just a cold like the doctor said. But he thinks Dennis is burnt out from too much work because of the many customers keeping him busy non-stop ever since they got back from the royal capital. With that said, they decide to let him rest until he wakes up and leave, but Aetlier stays behind, pulls a chair next to the bed, and quietly takes a seat, sitting on the staircase outside. Henrietta and Vivia wish they could do something to help him. And that is when Bacchal gets the smart idea of making porridge for him, with Vivia agreeing that food is vital to good health. That idea fires Henrietta up, and she puts her armor set back on because she is scared of fire. Then, she cheerfully hops into the back to look for ingredients and brings out a giant slab of meat that definitely does not belong in porridge, making Vivia worry a little. But when she pulls out her sword to slice it, he quickly tries to stop her before she cuts the shelf in half. While Bacchal is on her way to Aetlier with more ice, she panics when she sees the two idiots fighting and yelling. Hearing the noise, Cestopich comes in worried about what is happening. Meanwhile, Aetlier watches Dennis gasp for air as his fever shows no signs of going down. His ice pack falls to the side, and when she checks his fever, she thinks it is her fault he is so tired, remembering when he went all out for her, knowing he will always be there to protect her. She puts the ice pack back and prays he gets well soon. At the same time, Dennis dreams of the time he pranked one of the chefs and escaped out the window. Seeing that, the head lady asks what happened, and the man explains Dennis ruined his chopped cabbage by shredding it into powder, claiming the little runt is pulling these pranks because he forgot he owes her his new life. While little Dennis peeks from outside, the man asks her to punish him, but she tells him there is no point because he is the kind of kid who understands on his own with time, leaving the little prankster stunned. Later, he excitedly runs with what he thinks is the best fried rice he cooked, because he copied it by using his disassemble skill on the head lady's dish. Inside the Black's restaurant, he quietly walks in carrying his fried rice, which he offers to the lady. who is surprised that a young chef like him made something that smells so good. Hearing that, he proudly offers her a bite. But the moment she tries it, it tastes so bad that it makes her sick. The chefs and waitresses quickly rush over to help, and when the head lady asks what happened, the man tells her Dennis served her bad rice. Looking at the worried boy, she simply uses her magic to remove the bad stuff and confidently tells the hesitant lady to give it a try. Everyone watches in suspense as she takes a bite and is surprised by how good it is. And she tells her the little cook just missed one of their special seasonings. Later, when she is alone in the kitchen, Dennis drops by looking very guilty and apologizes for using the wrong skill on his rice. But she gently reminds him of the importance of using the right skill. Just then, he bursts into tears because he was really proud of his fried rice, so she teaches him to pay more attention to his studies and listen to his seniors. Still, Dennis is surprised she knew he used the disassemble skill and used her combined skill to fix it instantly. She tells him it is no big deal, and they don't call her the legendary fried rice for nothing. When Dennis hears her cool title, he asks if he can be famous like her, too, and he cheers up when she confirms. Back in the present, as Vivia asks Sestapich why he came, the man admits he has a great passion for magic knowledge, and there is a special book among the ones Aetlier inherited that he wanted to read, though he realizes that making something for Dennis is much more important. And the moment Henrietta says porridge, he says they must cook rice. When she repeats that they are making porridge and not rice, the man of culture educates the fools that cooking rice perfectly is the most important step of making real porridge. And that is why he thinks they must first learn how to cook rice using their magic. Bokkel and Vivia quickly get on board with the magic nerd who rambles about how passionate he was about magic before he became a lawyer. Bokkel and Vivia understand how important it is to control fire magic with surgical accuracy to cook the rice, and Sestapich brilliantly suggests they use phantom flames because their power can be decreased by using less mana, while Henrietta stares in confusion from the background. At that moment, Vivia points out the major flaw that phantom fire does not make rice crispy. But Henrietta reminds the lunatic that they are trying to make porridge in the end, and it is not supposed to be crispy. Still, Sestapich is not convinced, and Bokkel proposes they use the combination of normal and phantom flames for the best result. But Vivia comes up with another weird problem that gives Sestapich a headache. While the magic nerds continue theorizing the best solution, Henrietta sits down and drinks some tea, while Sestapich comes up with the ultimate technique where they use both kinds of fire magic with a catalyst. And before they move on to the next step, the magic team becomes exhausted, so they decide to take a break. Just then, Fat Man Polvo drops by and Henrietta is happy to see he got a gift for Dennis. But the scummy merchant says he is selling his items at half price, and Vivia is not fooled by the obvious scheme. However, Henrietta notices there is a rice cooker on the list, making Sestapich speechless. Polvo explains that the magic rice cooker makes flawless crispy rice. But Henrietta points out she needs to make porridge, so magic flames are the only way. Hearing that, the sweaty merchant grins and says it has a good porridge mode as well, and Henrietta asks if fire magic is not necessary. Polvo also gets confused and asks why they plan to cook the rice before making porridge when all it takes is to boil water and throw in some rice, which makes the magic team embarrassed. After Polvo and Sestapich leave, the three wait for the magic rice cooker to do its thing when Aetlier comes down and tells them Dennis's fever seems to be going down. Henrietta is glad to hear that because that means he will be able to eat their porridge. But when Aetlier notices they are making amateur porridge, she says they need eggs as well. With that said, the young lady cracks eggs like a pro as the three watch in awe from behind. As she stirs the eggs, Bokkel shares she has never eaten sweet eggs, and Henrietta agrees. When Vivia says he cannot handle sweet eggs, Henrietta is surprised, and her reaction makes Bokkel curious if she really does not have any preference in food. After thinking it over for a moment, Henrietta remembers there is one thing she does not like, and says it is leather shoes with a straight face. It takes Bokkel and Vivia a moment to process what she said as she tells them about the sad times when her family used to eat leather shoes. Regretting his question, Vivia still asks her why she ate shoes, and she proudly teaches him that her dad said leather shoes are made from animals, and animals are edible, though she never liked the taste. Seeing Bokkel in tears, Vivia tells the girls to end the conversation before it gets any more depressing. All the while Aetlier innocently stirs the eggs. Later that night, Dennis wakes up again as Aetlier opens the door. He is genuinely surprised to see egg porridge she cooked all by herself, and a single bite reminds him of the warmth he felt when he ate his master's fried rice. So he thanks the little cook for her delicious dinner. He then asks her if she really made it, and she adorably shows him how she stirred the eggs, making him really proud. Right before she drops the bomb that Polvo made the porridge, Dennis flips out when he hears her say it the second time, wondering what the hell Polvo was doing here. The following day, Henrietta cheerfully hums a song while strolling through the market when she runs into Vivia, who is stunned by the size of her backpack. She shyly replies that she got a little too excited for the big dinner, and along the way, a merchant becomes curious why the two regulars are not at the restaurant like usual. The two tell him it is a special day and grin at each other, full of excitement. Back at the restaurant, Bockel and Aetlier walk in to find Dennis packing up supplies while proudly wearing the shiny bracelet Aetlier gave him. Seeing the girl still in her apron, he tells her that she does not need to wear it everywhere she goes, but Aetlier refuses to change since she likes it. Just then, Vivia and Henrietta return fully ready to head out, so Dennis states it is time to roll out. Before they leave, Henrietta makes sure they are not forgetting the essentials like towels, extra soap, and buckets. With everything accounted for, they head to the bathhouse to wash up before the big feast, where Vivia completely loses it when he sees Dennis's jacked physique and rock-solid six-pack. Dennis flexes with pride and claims, "This is what a real man looks like," and Vivia showers him with compliments and begs to know the secret behind his beefy body. But Dennis changes the subject and asks Vivia why he is weaker than a broomstick. The boy claims that he doesn't need muscles because he is a mage, and even then, Dennis is exceptionally muscular for a fighter. But Dennis says anyone can look like him if they do 2,000 handstand push-ups a day, making it obvious he definitely is not human. After that, Dennis is outraged that the boy is not buck naked like he should be at a public bath and bullies him until he strips, while Henrietta happily shampoos Aetlier's silky smooth hair. Once both groups finish their soothing baths, they gather at the dining table covered with the finest food and drinks money can buy. Dennis asks Henrietta to do the honors as the food enthusiast of the group, and she suddenly feels shy about being put on the spot. She stiffens like dry spaghetti and gives a robotic speech about how thankful she is for everything. But when Dennis tells her to relax, she changes back to her goofy self. Henrietta reveals that even though she has been freeloading for a long time, she is finally proud to announce she got a job that earns her a sitting ovation from the others, and Dennis urges her to give the details, so she explains that she found work at the Night Order. The girl says she thought about it for a long time, and joining the order gives her the chance to help people as she wants. After that, Dennis turns to Vivia and asks if he has something to share as well, and the boy reveals that he also found a new party. Though it is not very large, he believes it is the first step on his journey to becoming a great mage. The girls cheer for him, and Henrietta says she is glad that both of them are not jobless anymore. But he refuses to be grouped with the freeloader, because, unlike her, he always paid his bills, and Dennis joins in on teasing her. After that, it is Bockel's turn, and she says she has decided to go back home after she becomes a teacher at the Magic Academy in the capital. Dennis recalls that she got the job offer before she even graduated, and Vivia makes her blush with a genuine compliment. With that said, Dennis raises a toast to a new chapter in everyone's life, and the sizzling barbecue feast begins. While Dennis chugs beer like there is no tomorrow, Aetlier shows Bockel her grilling skills. Seeing that, Vivia is happy that Bockel and Aetlier get along so well, but he also feels sad knowing they will all go their separate ways soon, which quickly grabs everyone's attention. Vivia admits he will be quite lonely, making Henrietta wonder if she should hold off work for a while, but Dennis calls the emotional duo idiots. He tells them to show no hesitation and stick with the path they chose. His wise words make Bockel and Vivia feel better, and Henrietta gets so hyped. She says she is ready to leave town starting tomorrow, but Aetlier smugly reminds the girl her job didn't start yet. After that, Dennis tosses some rice into a bowl and shows off his cooking skills. Beams of light shoot out of the pan as he throws in the seasoning and stirs it like a pro, leaving everyone stunned with his mouth-watering 5-star fried rice. The group gets ready to dig in, but the strange chewing noises of a sweaty merchant gobbling up rice nearby draw their attention. Polvo admits he could not hold back after smelling something so good, and Dennis recognizes him as that shady merchant who once tried to outbid him on Aetlier. But when he forgets his name, Polvo looks crushed, though as soon as Aetlier says his name, the greaseball tries to win her over and make her work at his shop. but Dennis shuts him up and tells him to keep his hands off his poster girl. But he thanks the man for helping with the rice cooker, which let him enjoy Aetler's tasty egg porridge, which was so good he plans to put it on the menu. With that said, Dennis politely asks the creepy merchant why he showed up, but Polvo begs him not to call him a pervert in front of Aetler. Next, Polvo says he heard about the big feast and wanted to treat Dennis and the rest with a generous offer of top-tier Hagen beef. Seeing that, the three drool like crazy and gladly take him up on it. Once Polvo pulls out his signature knives, his girls toss the meat into the air, and Dennis slices it with sharp precision into perfect bite-sized cuts ready to grill. While everyone is stunned by how good the meat tastes, Polvo gets depressed because he only wanted to treat Aetler with his meat. Seeing the cutie pie feed Dennis, Polvo burns with jealousy and starts crying, saying he wants her to feed him too. Dennis asks her to choose, and she decides to fulfill the big guy's wish, who blacks out from a nosebleed after just one bite. After dinner is over, Vivia tells Dennis that he wanted to ask something personal for a long time, and brings up how the judge called him Dennis Blacks in court, which made him wonder if Dennis has ties to the Blacks restaurant. Dennis explains that he got the family name from the head lady who adopted him, but he stopped using it after a fight with her. Hearing about the fight, Vivia gets curious, so Dennis shares that it happened when he hit level 99, and he did not realize at the time that she was only trying to keep him humble. Vivia is shocked that someone like Dennis was ever arrogant, though it makes sense because it is a big deal to reach level 99 at his young age. Dennis smiles and says he thought he would hit 100 just as easily, so he left the Blacks restaurant to prove himself and show the chef lady what he was capable of. And soon after that, he ended up in the Silver Wing Battalion, where he stayed the longest. Even though they treated him well, he never reached level 100 in the end. Back in town, the two regular girls get excited over what they will eat that night. But when they arrive at the restaurant, they read a notice saying it is closed due to personal business, and their excitement dies on the spot. Suddenly, a pair of rascals roughly shoves one of the girls, and when her friend tries to step in, he threatens her with a knife before walking off. Seeing that they want to fight, the blonde girl summons a magic bow and fires an arrow right where it hurts, while her friend uses her magic to punish the other one. As the girls laugh after serving them justice, they notice a loud crowd gathered outside the restaurant because of a fire. Meanwhile, Dennis is worn out from all the drinking, and Henrietta says she wants to have parties like that as much as possible from now on. But the mood turns serious when Aetler suddenly stops after spotting a fire in the distance right next to the restaurant. Dennis stares in confusion as Vivia wonders if it is a bonfire or something. But when the truth hits him, he runs as fast as he can, praying it is not what he thinks it is, yet reality is cruel. All of them freeze in horror at the sight of the place where it all began, burning to the ground. While Dennis is lost on what to do, the onlookers yell for anyone with water magic to help, and when Bakul asks him what they should do, he snaps out of it. At that moment, the regular duo reveals that the two men tied up were behind the fire, and Vivia instantly recognizes them as members of the Night Mist Party. The thugs yell that Dennis deserved it because he got too full of himself, and the other horrifies everyone by shouting that the Silver Battalion, Housework and Night Mist Party all hate his guts and want to destroy him. Dennis feels the earth below him disappear when they say he and his friends will suffer till the day they die. After the fire settles down, he steps inside the ruined building, remembering how the cozy restaurant of his dreams used to look like before the fire. Suddenly, Henrietta's crying breaks the heavy silence, while Vivia believes it is his fault because Dennis made enemies with them for helping him. Bakul also feels guilty since Night Mist Troop attacked him because of her, but Dennis assures them they did nothing wrong. Rather, he is shocked that the Silver Battalion is involved and guesses that Aetler's Uncle Joseph probably gave the order to Captain Vigo, who then used Night Mist Troop to handle his dirty work. He realizes he got too cocky and ended up with more enemies than he can handle, but Vivia insists he did nothing wrong, and they should hit back at everyone for messing with him like he always does. Dennis cuts him off, saying he can simply open another restaurant. At this point, he is tired and feels grateful no one got hurt. Watching him give up drives the girls crazy, but he says revenge is not as simple as they think. While he is strong on his own, the kingdom's nobles and the top party have enough manpower to crush him, so he forces a smile and tells them all to go home for the night. As he quietly walks away, Vivia asks where the fiery Dennis, who was ready to fight the whole kingdom for Aetler, went, and Dennis replies that his head is a lot cooler now. After that, he checks the vault, which still has the money inside, and Aetlier asks him if he truly is fine with his decision. He says it is fine because if he pushes back, his enemies will only get fiercer, and he might end up losing someone if things turn ugly. So he is satisfied with getting out while he can. Outside, a gang of thugs closes in on Vivia and the girls from every side. Meanwhile, Aetlier gently asks Dennis if she can still stay with him. But Dennis tells her not to be so formal since Joseph only punished him for his disrespect in court. He also apologizes because the books she inherited from her father are now gone in the fire. Aetlier replies that she is fine with that, but the one thing she cannot bear is seeing Dennis with a sad face. After that, she fist bumps him, and he promises to come back for a visit once things settle down. Outside, Vivia and the girls are confused to see all the people who gathered, and when Dennis walks out with Aetlier, everyone stares at him with a serious face. Bockel says they will not let him sneak out in the dark, and Henrietta calls him a complete coward. When he asks them for the reason, Vivia explains that Dennis is the kind of person who cannot stand to see others get hurt. But when it is his turn, he does not care if he is hurt himself. The boy asks him if he still does not understand why they are gathered for him in the middle of the night. The three shout that everyone cares about him, so when he is sad or hurt, they feel sad and hurt as well. Vivia reminds him they are all outcasts just like him, so they are ready to be cast out again when the time comes. But he says this is not that time because there are many people who want him to stay, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to keep him in town. The girls say he belongs there, and no one can kick him out as long as they are by his side, and right when he least expects it, Paulvo also appears, saying no one dares to hurt his Aetlier and walk away with it. The two regular ladies also join in, and the men in green armor, whom he definitely does not remember, also come to show their support. The girls tell Dennis it is time for him to stop his tough guy act and fight together with them, and Vivia urges him to hold on tight to what he treasures the most. Seeing all this, Dennis feels lame because he was the one who always told others to hold on tight to what is precious. And now he is on the receiving end of his own words right when he was about to let go of his dream. At that moment, Aetlier tugs his shirt, and when he sees the look in her eyes, he drops the bag and gets ready to give it a shot. Everyone cheers when they see him fired up, and he says he does not want to be seen as a coward after all. That embarrasses Henrietta, and she only said it to hype him up before she quickly changes the subject to deciding a name for their team. Bockel agrees that it will make them sound official, so Aetlier suggests they call it Outcasts Restaurant. Dennis finds the name a little rough, but it suits them quite well, and with that, Vivia asks the leader of Outcasts Restaurant to give a speech. So Dennis declares that his team and the townsfolk will crush their enemies, and they will go as far as it takes to make sure justice is served to the villains who burned down his dreams. After that, Vivia asks him what exactly his plan is, and that throws Dennis off. Just then, Katie calls out his name, but she realizes she is too late. She pulls him aside to apologize on behalf of the whole party, but he tells her it was not her fault. A few hours earlier, Katie tells him how Captain Vigo asked a hooded man if he had told the Night Mist troop about the plan, and the man asked if he was sure about the idea to burn down the restaurant. Vigo made it clear he only told that party about the situation, and it was completely their choice how they carried out the job. And when the man tried to argue, the captain asked him if he had a problem. That was when Katie ran as fast as she could to warn him before it happened. Dennis tells her not to worry about it and asks her instead about Vigo's next plans because he has to stop him. Hearing that, Katie says she is also at fault for letting Vigo run wild and bows an apology because she is still the vice captain of the Silver Wing Battalion, and she cannot help him in the plan against her own party. She walks away after that, and Dennis says he was asking too much since she is also one of Vigo's victims. Hearing that, Katie says she is just about to talk to herself, and lets him in on a secret. The next morning, the Outcast party heads out in horse carts, where Dennis shocks his team with the fact that the head chef of Black's restaurant and his foster parent, Jean Black's, is level 100. The three instantly think his master might be some kind of monster in a chef's costume, making him worried about the nonsense they are imagining. Still in shock, Bockel says reaching level 100 is no joke, and Vivia explains that level 60 is the limit for normal people, and only a few talented individuals make it to 80. Very few ever reach above level 90, even after training their whole lives, and the ones who reach level 100 literally go down in history books. The boy asks him if he even understands that, and Dennis says that what he does not understand is why he is so excited. Vivia continues that the best part of being level 100 is that it puts his master in the same league as kings and repeats if he understands how big that is. Dennis is surprised to see the boy in high spirits after so long and tells him to calm down, because while he agrees with what was said, his master reached her level only through cooking skills. That is why she is far weaker in battle compared to him. But even then, he is sure that no one is better in the kitchen than her, and she has countless connections with powerful people in the capital. And that is why there is no one better than her he can turn to for help. However, Vivia wonders if she will even help them at all, and Bockel hopes she does not shut the door in their face, and Dennis confirms that it might just happen. In the city, everyone wears white robes to keep their identity hidden and follows the plan Dennis gave them while he meets with the special person. Vivia heads to a barber shop where he politely asks the lady if she can do him a favor, and the lady, enchanted by his charm, happily agrees. And when Vivia flashes her a smile, her face turns red like hot tomato soup. On the other hand, Bockel repeats to her team that the mission is to make contact with every mage and famous sage in the royal capital. But the mage girls wonder if their targets are even willing to listen to nobodies like them. Bockel assures them they will if the girls talk just like they planned and hypes them up. Meanwhile, Henrietta visits Sestapich and updates him on the tragic situation. She asks him if they cannot legally fight since they already have the culprits in custody. But the lawyer makes it clear that even if they do, the Silver Wing party and the nobles involved will continue to make things tough, even if the Night Mist captain is put in jail. However, Henrietta expected this answer and tells the lawyer her team already has a plan, which makes him very interested to hear her out. Elsewhere nearby, a group of workers slowly carries boxes off carts, but Polvo tells the guys they will not be finished by sunset if they keep going like that and orders them to put some energy into it. Hearing that, two of his men remember the rumor that the creepy boss yells at his men and makes them work so hard that one day they turn into merchants with sharp business skills and a creepy personality just like him. Polvo scares off the slackers and then notices Aitlir staring at one of his boxes. When he asks her what caught her interest, she asks him about the item with the weird shape. So he explains it is a device that makes the user's voice loud. He is sad that it is broken because he really needs it to keep his men in line. Suddenly, the man wearing a turban recognizes Aitlir as the girl who lent him the grimoire back when he asked Dennis if he could borrow it since it had a treatment for his wife's condition. He returns the book to her and thanks her because his wife survived because of it. Aitlir blushes when she hears that, and when the man asks if he can repay the favor, he notices Polvo's men carrying heavy boxes in the back. The man says he is a well-known mage, and he knows plenty when it comes to advanced wind magic. Polvo happily welcomes him to the team. After that, the Outcast team and company continue to connect with as many people in the city as they can, and Dennis also arrives outside Black's restaurant. He walks up to the handle but hesitates for a moment as he recalls the time when he rudely told his master there was nothing she could teach him anymore and walked out the same door he now stands in front of. Even then, he opens it, and the staff tell him they are still getting things ready, but their jaws drop to the floor when they recognize his face. Dennis tries to keep things low-key, but the maid yells that Chef Dennis has returned, and it does not take long before every chef and waiter in the restaurant gathers around to ask about how he is doing. A senior chef is really glad to see him, but Dennis lets him know he came to see his master. Then, he hears Hesmok welcome him back, and he asks her if she filled his position. But she shakes her head and says she is only a pretender because she can never truly fill his shoes. After that, she leads him to the head chef and sees him out at the kitchen entrance. Seeing his master after such a long time, he shyly walks inside and asks her how she has been doing. After a short pause, she acts surprised and calls him the fried rice idiot, which makes Dennis feel like he is back home. When he asks her why she is quietly smiling at him, she says he looks a lot better than when he left and asks Dennis if he has found his answer. He regretfully admits that she might be right about him never hitting level 100 after everything he has experienced on his journey. Then, Jean asks him what is wrong as she already knows he did not come back without a reason. And Dennis tells her that he heard from a friend in the Silver Wing party that all the hotshots in the capital will gather for a huge banquet. Next, Katie said the royal court's judge, Joseph from House Workstadt, Captain Hopper of the Night Mist Troop, and finally Captain Vigo of the Silver Wing Battalion will all be at that party. After that, she told Dennis she hoped he understood and left the rest up to him, after which the two walked their separate ways. His master instantly recognizes that it was a list of names of the biggest troublemakers, and Dennis tells her that while he does not know what they are scheming, he does know there is no better time to strike than when they all gather in one room. Jean asks him what he wants her to do, and all he asks for is the date and location of the big dinner, since it should be a piece of cake for the world-famous chef with connections in high places. Hearing that, Jean questions what his plans are because she cannot let him ruin a dinner being a chef. As he tightly holds on to the bracelet that represents what is important to him, he declares he has to do the worst thing a cook can do. Jean cannot believe that the first thing she hears from her foster son after so long is something so outrageous, and Dennis swears he did not really plan this either. Then, she explains that she always thought he was the kind of boy who fired himself up when it came to helping others, but gave up the moment he faced trouble himself. So she asks him what made him take such drastic measures now. Hearing that, the words of Henrietta, Vivia, Bockel, and everyone else back in the town flash through his mind. And Dennis tells his master he is doing it all for the sake of the people who love his cooking and dream restaurant. That makes Jean smile, and she admits that he did learn a few things on his journey after all. But Dennis replies that he still has a long way to go. With that said, the head chef agrees to give him what he is after only if he listens carefully, and reminds him that while she taught him everything he needed to survive in the world and all her cooking techniques, there is still one thing she never told him the whole time. Hearing that, Dennis curiously asks what it is, and she reveals it is the secret behind reaching level 100. After that, Dennis heads outside and awkwardly scratches his head because that secret would have made his life a lot easier. Later that night, Hesmock hands him the information on the meeting his master sent for him, and with that, he tells the gang it's time to roll. Back at the Silver Wing HQ, Katie asks Captain Vigo where he is going, and he replies that he has some serious captain business, so she pretends not to know anything about it and wishes the captain good luck. On his way to the meeting, Vigo thinks that the place he is going to is a complete waste of time, but he knows it will help him reach his goal. Then, he flashes back to the past when he was a broke boy who labored every single day on the farms, and the only one with him back then was his sick brother. A pair of farmers nearby felt pity for the boys who had lost their father to disease, while their mother abandoned them to marry another man. After work, the kind lady who owned the farm thanked Vigo for his effort with a basket of fruit, knowing he earned so little that he had to give most of his food to his brother. Noticing that his hoe was old and worn out, she even offered to buy him a new one. After she left, Vigo admitted to himself that he was glad to have his sick brother, and then grinned like a villain, because it was far too easy to trick rich folks into being generous. Later that day, the lady's son had trouble holding back his dog, Noah, who barked furiously at Vigo like always. The lady wondered aloud why it only barked at Vigo, and that question seriously got on his nerves, so he snapped and beat the dog to death. Both mother and son were completely horrified when they found the body the very next morning. Vigo quietly watches the crying boy from a distance and remembers how his little brother tried to stop him. But he became angry that the filthy mutt got better food than they did and landed the final blow. His little brother stayed silent even though he wanted to cry. Just then, the butler came running and told the lady he had found a bloody hoe in the incinerator, so she worriedly asked Vigo if he had used it, and the boy lied that he forgot it there, acting shocked that someone had used it for murder. However, the butler noticed a small blood stain on his brother's shirt. As the old man grabbed his little brother's arm and accused him of the crime, Vigo kicked him hard in the back and admitted that he was the one who actually did it. Hearing that, the lady decided he needed to be punished, and later that night, while his brother waited in bed for him to return, Vigo finally came inside with scars covering his back. Seeing his brother's reaction to the injuries, Vigo became frustrated, and the very next day, he set the entire mansion on fire. While all the residents stared in shock from outside, he proudly bragged to his little brother that he stole everything they owned and now they were just as broke as them. However, he was still not satisfied because he aimed to achieve goals far greater than that. However, when he told his brother to come along, the terrified kid was already gone. From that day onward, he swung his sword all day and all night, even when the weather grew harsh, until his hands were calloused and dripping with blood. After that, he challenged a gang of thugs who mocked him for thinking he could take them on with his tiny stick. but they quickly regretted it after he completely destroyed them in only a few minutes. Next, Vigo stole all their equipment, and before long, he joined the Silver Fang party, where Captain Gadius complimented him and said he expected great things from the recruit who was level 80 just like him. On his first mission, he amazed the party members by defeating the 5th monster in a row all by himself, then told the others to go ahead while he handled the rest. Later, the captain pulled him aside and asked why he always fought alone when getting help from his party members would be much easier. Vigo replied that it was simply easier for him to do everything on his own, and the captain realized he was aiming to reach level 100 as well. So, Gadius gave the boy a tip, warning him that parties were not meant for leveling up. But Vigo quietly grinned, and just then, a massive dragon appeared behind him, making Gadius realize they had stepped into a dragon's territory. Still, Gadius was not worried because the dragon was a passive breed. But Vigo suddenly threw a dagger into its eye and ran away while the captain asked why he did that, leaving the man behind to become dragon food. Back at the Silver Fang HQ, the party members could not believe their captain died to a mere cave dragon, and told Vigo he should take over as the next captain since he was the strongest among them, just like he planned. Vigo gladly agreed, and under his command, many of the adventurers started leaving because he used his new status to make connections and do the dirty work for nobles. Even though his men kept leaving, Vigo continued making deals with shady figures, and one day at the bar, he told Katie that the old Silver Fang was already dead, so he would rename it the Silver Wing Battalion, for which he was recruiting the new generation that would lead the country. That is why he asked her to join him in becoming the strongest, and Katie liked the sound of that. Back in the present, a voice snaps Vigo out of his thoughts, and he enters a mansion where the meeting was planned. Inside, he knocks on the door of the room where Sir Joseph is waiting for him, but the first thing he does is close the curtain to make sure no one sees them together. Joseph reminds him that he already booked out the entire hotel at his request, but Vigo replies that he likes to be thorough. Later, the dirty uncle badmouths Aetlier and smugly brags that she got what she deserved, while Vigo reports that not even a trace of the restaurant remains, and compliments Captain Hopper on the good work. Hopper replies it was his pleasure to get back at Dennis, and Vigo assures him that he has nothing to worry about, even if he gets arrested, because the chief judge of the royal court is a dear friend of theirs. The bearded scumbag laughs, thinking that they are an invincible team of the most powerful people in their domains. But Joseph laughs louder and corrects him, saying they are more than that because he plans to rule the entire kingdom from the shadows very soon. He claims everyone, even the royal family of Kingland, will be forced to obey him, and says he owes all this to Dennis, who brought the team of 4 villains together. As the men raise a toast, a waiter suddenly walks in and makes Vigo furious because he came inside without permission. But the gracious Sir Joseph tells him to calm down and listen to what the boy has to say. The boy explains that the chef forgot to serve one final dish, so the man allows him to leave it after serving. But the 4 men stare in suspense when they see a blinding light under the cover, which turns out to be nothing more than fried rice. Seeing that, they are disappointed, and after the waiter explains it is the chef's specialty, Vigo tells him to get lost. But Sir Joseph tells the boy to wait as he shoves down spoon after spoon of the outrageously good rice and says that it is just too good. Seeing that, Vigo warns the noble to mind his manners, but Joseph insists he tastes it for himself, saying he could never believe that a dish made for peasants could taste this good. Hearing that, Hopper and the royal judge take a bite as well, and they are so shocked that Sir Joseph immediately orders the waiter to tell the chef to make more, even offering to give the man the honor of working directly under him. After the boy leaves, Vigo is disgusted at the pig who thinks he is a great man, even though he has no training in magic or manners. He thinks Hopper is just as dumb, and the judge is nothing but trash, using his position for personal gain. He grins while he imagines himself using all of them as stepping stones, and then brutally punishing them in public to become the hero who saved the nation from a gang of corrupt criminals. That will earn him an official title and make him a powerful noble, allowing him to rise further and one day take over the kingdom, maybe even the surrounding kingdom, like his lifelong dream. After that, he finally takes a bite on Joseph's insistence, and right as he realizes he has tasted it before, the door bursts open, and the chef named Legendary Fried Rice, who was summoned by Sir Joseph, walks in. However, the chef quickly rejects the offer as he pulls off his bag and declares it is time for the man to pay him back for burning down his restaurant. Joseph orders Vigo to do something, and the captain asks Dennis what his plan is, so he calmly replies that he will beat all of them up. Hearing that, Vigo wonders what something so reckless could achieve other than getting him hanged. But Dennis replies that he no longer cares about that. Then, he politely says that he is angry as hell and yells while using his intimidation skill, telling the men they will regret being born, dropping the men to their knees in fear. Joseph begs him to calm down, but Dennis uses his skill again, freaking them out even further. At that moment, Joseph offers to grant him anything he wants, so Dennis casually demands that Atlier's parents and books be restored to how they were. Joseph admits he cannot do that, but begs him to sit down for a civil talk, promising to give him anything else that is possible. Hearing that, Dennis asks the men if they will admit to burning down his restaurant, but they refuse to answer, so he yells again and forces the weasels to plead guilty. He then orders them to speak up louder and clearly admit that they used the Silver Wing party to burn down his restaurant through Captain Hopper's men and had the royal judge cover it up. As the men tremble in fear, Joseph swears he did not plan it all alone. While Vigo finally realizes Dennis was using terror howl the entire time, Joseph makes him panic by admitting that all four of them were behind everything. Right then, Dennis asks Vivia if he recorded all of it, and the boy, using wind magic to transmit their words across the capital, says it was loud and clear, before jumping out just as Vigo tries to blast them away. The Silver Wing leader is shocked when he looks outside and sees all the powerful nobles who heard everything dining down below, and Dennis welcomes Vigo to his temporary new restaurant with a big smile. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.